Hermione Granger and the Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 14. A Future Set in Stone. As soon as Hermione saw Harry the next morning in the Great Hall, she knew something had happened. When they had noticed the inkless diary, Hermione had recommended trying to write in the diary to see if the ink was repelled, and he agreed to try once he got back up to the dormitory. I wrote in the diary, just like you said, Harry started in a hushed voice. And Tom Riddle answered. What do you mean, answered? Hermione said. I wrote, my name is Harry Potter. And then my ink vanished. And in its place, the words, hello, Harry Potter, my name is Tom Riddle. How do you come about my diary? Showed up on the page, Harry said. And so I wrote about how someone threw it in a toilet and that I found it. He said something about how he wasn't surprised because his diary held a lot of secrets that people didn't want to get out, secrets about Hogwarts and the Chamber of Secrets. Harry took a deep breath. Hermione realized she had been holding hers. She let it out in anticipation, but Harry was taking his good old time. And Hermione said sharply, well, Harry said, he wrote out this whole paragraph about how when he was in his fifth year, the chamber was open and the monster attacked several students, finally killing one. Tom caught the person who'd opened the chamber and the student was expelled. But the headmaster, Professor Dippet, paid Tom to tell the truth. A story was given out that the girl had died in a freak accident, not that the monster killed it. But Tom said he knew it could happen again, especially because the person who opened it wasn't imprisoned. Did he know who it was? Hermione interrupted. Who opened the Chamber of Secrets and why wasn't he imprisoned? I wonder the same thing. But then Tom offered to show me what happened instead of writing it. Show you? Yes. The pages of the diary began to blow about and stopped halfway through to June 13th. There was kind of a little window on the page, so I held it up to look into it. But before I knew what was happening, I pitched headfirst through the opening of the page. Hermione gasped as Harry continued. Ron listened as well, though it seemed as though he had already heard the story. Suddenly, I land in Dumbledore's office. Only it wasn't Dumbledore's office, it was Headmaster Dippet's office, Harry continued. He couldn't see me or hear me, but I could see and hear everything that went on. And Tom came in, and he and Dippet started talking about how Tom was going to have to go back to the orphanage he lived in because it wasn't safe for him to stay at Hogwarts. See, his parents were both dead, just like me, by the way. And Dippet was worried Tom would be targeted because he was a half-blood. So Tom decided to tell Dippet who the heir of Slytherin was, so that way he wouldn't have to go back to the orphanage. Harry paused again and frowned. It was Hagrid. Hagrid opened the Chamber of Secrets. Hermione couldn't speak at first. Hagrid hadn't even been a possibility. It just wasn't fathomable. Hermione made Harry tell her the story again and then again for a third time, hoping it would change. It didn't. Still, Hermione had doubts. Riddle might have got the wrong person, said Hermione. Maybe it was some other monster that was attacking people. How many monsters do you think this place can hold? Ron asked dully. We always knew Hagrid had been expelled, said Harry miserably. And the attacks must have stopped after Hagrid was kicked out. Otherwise, Riddle wouldn't have got his award. Ron tried a different tact. Riddle does sound like Percy. Who asked him to squeal on Hagrid anyway? But the monster had killed someone, Ron, said Hermione. And Riddle was going to go back to some muggle orphanage if they closed Hogwarts, said Harry. I don't blame him for wanting to stay here. Hermione knew exactly what Harry meant. She kept thinking, trying to find a loophole in the story. Ron spoke again. You met Hagrid down Nocturne Alley, didn't you, Harry? He was buying a flesh-eating slug repellent, said Harry quickly. The three of them fell silent. After a long pause, Hermione voiced the naughtiest question of all in a hesitant voice. Do you think we should go and ask Hagrid about it all? Oh, that would be a cheerful visit, said Ron. Oh, hello, Hagrid. Tell us, have you been setting anything mad and Harry losing the castle lately? In the end, they decided that they would not say anything to Hagrid unless there was another attack. As more and more days went by with no whisper from the disembodied voice, they became hopeful that they would never need to talk to him about why he had been expelled. It was now nearly 4 months since Justin and Nearly's headless snake had been petrified, and almost everybody seemed to think that the attacker, whoever it was, had retired for good. Ernie Macmillan asked Harry quite politely to pass a bucket of leaping toadstools in herbology one day. And in March, several of the mandrakes threw a loud and raucous party in Greenhouse 3. This made Professor Sprout very happy. The moment they start trying to move into each other's pots, we'll know they're fully mature, Professor Sprout said. Then we'll be able to revive those poor people in the hospital wing. The second years were given something new to think about during their Easter holiday, and Hermione welcomed the forced change of pace. The time had come to choose their subjects for the third year, a matter that Hermione took very seriously. She felt as though she had really slacked off with her schoolwork this year with everything going on with the Chamber of Secrets. She'd be able to get back on track next year and potentially take some extra classes to make up for everything. It could affect our whole future, Hermione told Harry and Ron as they pored over a list of new subjects, marking them with checks. I just want to give up potions, said Harry. We can't, said Ron gloomily. We keep all our old subjects, or I'd have ditched defense against the dark arts. But that's very important, said Hermione, shocked. Well, not the way Lockhart teaches it, said Ron. I haven't learned anything from him except not to set pixies loose. Hermione scowled at him. Neville Longbottom had been sent letters from all the witches and wizards in his family, all giving him different advice on what to choose. Confused and worried, he sat reading the subject lists with his tongue poking out, asking people whether they thought arithmancy sounded more difficult than the study of ancient runes. Dean Thomas, who like Hermione had grown up with muggles, ended up closing his eyes and jabbing his wand at the list, then picking the subjects it landed on. Hermione took nobody's advice and signed up for everything. She knew it wouldn't be possible to take all of the classes, but Hermione truly couldn't decide. Everything sounded absolutely fascinating. She was pretty sure that once Professor McGonagall saw all of the lessons she chose, she'd schedule to meet with Hermione and give her advice. Still, Hermione took out a few books from the library to read up on the different subjects she had been offered. She settled into the Gryffindor common room's comfy chair to read the first book she got from the library, Ancient Runes Made Easy, which was unbelievably fascinating. It was so nice to concentrate on her schoolwork for once instead of worrying about the Chamber of Secrets and its monsters. While she completely disregarded the notion Hagrid was the heir of Slytherin and knew the culprit had yet to be caught, she took a bit of comfort in the fact that there hadn't been an attack for a few months. Just as she had pulled her quill out to take notes, Ron and Harry sat down across from her. Riddle's diary's gone, Harry said in an undertone to Hermione. Someone tossed my room. It's gone. What? She gasped. Her mind was going a mile a minute. The word vomit was hurting, but she was so upset that she was failing to put together complete sentences. But only Gryffindor could have stolen. Nobody else knows our password. Exactly, said Harry. Hermione's stomach turned to stone, and the familiar feeling of cold Heat enveloped her body. A Gryffindor. A Gryffindor was the heir of Slytherin. It had to be. Who else would want Riddle's secrets to be kept secret? She glanced at Ron. Could it be him? He looked just as shocked as she was, though. Could he be acting? No. No one could be that good at acting, especially Ron. He had absolutely no filter. It couldn't be Ron. Hermione felt guilty for even thinking it could be him. That left Fred, George, Percy, Ginny, and Neville. Hermione hoped with all her heart it was Percy, but knew that was just wishful thinking and not rooted in concrete evidence. Though Percy, as a prefect, had been out patrolling the corridors, so had a perfect excuse to be out and about during the attacks if he was ever caught. She didn't want to believe that one of her friends could be trying to kill people. People like her. She needed her notes. She needed to concentrate. She needed to figure it out before it was too late. The danger was real, and it was in her house. Even though she didn't feel as though it was safe for her in the Gryffindor Tower now that she knew that the heir of Slytherin was in her house, Hermione ran up to her room and locked the door. Her pleas to Harry to report the robbery went on deaf ears. Hermione couldn't help but think of how nice it must be for Harry not to have to worry that the monster of Slytherin was going to petrify you at any moment, like she had to. She figured being a parcel mouth and the boy who'll leave gave Harry a leg up. Hermione pulled out her notes again and started to reread everything. She added the different parts Harry had learned from Tom Riddle as well, hoping it would connect some of the dots. The monster was able to kill, not just petrified, which was absolutely horrible and terrifying, but Hermione couldn't allow herself to dwell on the increased danger, which broadened the search a bit when it came to the monster. Hermione couldn't bring herself to think about the heir, even though she was totally convinced whoever it was, be it George, Fred, Percy, Ginny, or Neville, they were under the chamber's spell and not working on their own accord. Hermione stayed up most of the night, poring over fantastic beasts and where to find them. She kept coming back to the Basilisk and a Medusa-type monster, but what she couldn't piece together was how no one had noticed either a huge snake or a woman with snakes for hair waltzing around the castle. Even the dimmest of students, like Crabbe and Goyle, would notice something like that. Hermione knew that if she could figure that out, she'd be closer to finding out where the Chamber of Secrets was. And then maybe Dumbledore could close it. And if Dumbledore could close it, whichever one of her friends had opened it, it would be broken from its hold over them. Hermione was still reeling the next morning when she woke up and joined Ron and Harry in the Great Hall for breakfast. There was to be a Quidditch match against Hufflepuff later that day, so Harry was trying to fill upon carbs. Hermione was trying to decide whether or not it would be too dangerous to stick around in the mostly empty castle while everyone was at the beach, just to investigate. With Fred and George playing in the game, Hermione only had to worry about Ginny, Percy, and Neville staying in the castle. Her eyes scanned the Great Hall. Percy was sitting at the Ravenclaw table with Penelope Clearwater of Ravenclaw. He was dressed in all of his Gryffindor colors, presumably to help cheer the team on from the stands during the match. Unfortunately, she couldn't find Ginny or Neville in the sea of students. Nonetheless, her mind was made up. Hermione figured she'd walk down with Ron and Harry, but then sneak back up as soon as the game started. She knew Ron wouldn't notice. He wouldn't notice if a giant Medusa was standing right next to him if there was a Quidditch game going on. Hopefully, she'd see Neville or Ginny down at the beach in order to rule them out as well. Just as they walked out of the Great Hall, Harry stopped dead in his tracks and shouted, causing Hermione and Ron to jump back in alarm. "The voice!" said Harry, looking over his shoulder. "I just heard it again. Didn't you? Harry turned toward the shared wall between the corridor and the lavatory, searching for the voice no one else could hear. But Hermione did hear something, a hissing. Suddenly, it all clicked. The hissing that only Harry could understand. The hissing sound that was coming from the walls. What was in the walls? Pipes. What could slither through pipes? A snake. The monster of Slytherin was a basilisk, and it was using the pipes to sneak around, and it was going to attack again very soon. Harry, I think I just understood something. I've got to go to the library, Hermione said quickly, and she sprinted away up the stairs. She had to understand why most of the students were being petrified instead of killed. What was the connection? There had to be a connection. She had to learn more about the basilisk, and she had to learn about it fast. Every time Harry heard a voice, there was another attack. She was so focused on getting to the library as soon as possible, Hermione didn't see Neville until she bumped into him on the steps. As soon as she saw who it was, she froze in fear. Was it Neville controlling the serpent? Was it going to come after her next? Hi, Hermione, Neville said with a wide smile. Hi, Neville, Hermione said tentatively. Aren't you going to the Quidditch game? He asked. Uh, I was, yes, Hermione stuttered. But you're going the wrong way, Neville said. Right, yes, I am, Hermione said, getting more and more nervous. Was Neville the heir? Was he about to call the basilisk? But I just remember I need to get a book from the library. Right then, I'll save you a seat, Neville said cheerily. I'm heading out there now. Neville turned and continued down the steps without a care in the world. Hermione watched him go. There seems to be some pep in his step. Neville seemed too happy to have the burden of knowing he was controlling a monster to hurt his enemies. Ginny, on the other hand, had been despondent all year. With renewed energy, Hermione ran to the library. She knew exactly what book she was looking for. Most Macabre Monstrosities was on the top shelf in the magical creatures section of the library. Hermione jumped up and knocked it off the shelf. The dark, blood-red book clattered to the ground. Normally, Hermione would feel horrible for making such a commotion in the library, but she knew she didn't have much time left. The castle was nearly empty, yet she could hear a deep hissing. Her hand scanned the index quickly before landing on Basilisk. She flipped to page 724 and read, one of the many fearsome beasts and monsters that roam our land. There is none more curious or more deadly than the basilisk, known also as the king of serpents. This snake, which may reach gigantic size and live many hundreds of years, is born from a chicken's egg hatched beneath a toad. Its methods of killing are most wondrous, for aside from its deadly and venomous fangs, the basilisk has a murderous stare, and all who are fixed with the beam of its eye shall suffer instant death. Spiders flee before the basilisk, for it is their mortal enemy, and the basilisk flees only from the crowing of the rooster, which is fatal to it. What Hermione did next was the most uncharacteristic thing she had ever done in her life. She glanced around to make sure the coast was clear, and then ripped the page with the information on the basilisk out of the book. At the top of the page, she wrote pipes in her elegant scroll and folded it up. She knew that if she was attacked, she needed to warn them somehow, and that was the only way she could think of. While the passage in most macabre monstrosities didn't mention it specifically, Hermione had a hunch as to why none of the current victims have died. The book said, all who are fixed with the beam of its eye shall suffer instant death. Perhaps if a victim indirectly looked at the basilisk, they'd not be killed but petrified instead. It seemed to fit perfectly. Mrs. Norris probably saw the basilisk's reflection in the water that was all over the floor. Colin had his camera and was probably looking through the lens. Justin may have been looking through Sir Nicholas instead of directly at the beast. And, as much as Hermione hated to admit it, the heir was probably none other than Ginny Weasley. She knew she'd have to find her, and maybe she could help convince her to call off the monster. She needed to find Ginny. She had to stop the next attack. Hermione took the folded up passage from the book and rooted it around in her bag. She had to be smart about this. Thankfully, Hermione quickly found what she was looking for: a mirror. Using the mirror as a shield, which it was, Hermione walked out the corridors. She was careful to only look through the mirror at the hallway before her, but wasn't exactly sure where to go to find Ginny. Suddenly, Hermione gasped. The entrance to the Chamber of Secrets was Myrtle's bathroom. It made perfect sense. The pipes, the water, and Myrtle was probably the monster's first victim. She started to run as fast as she could towards the lavatory. The hissing was getting louder and seemed to be pulsing in time with Hermione's thundering heartbeat. She rounded the last corner. She could see the out of order sign. She ran faster. Her feet pounded the stone floors. They echoed in time with the hissing. "Hey, no running in the corridors," came a voice from immediately in front of her. Hermione took a chance and looked up. It was Penelope Clearwater, the Ravenclaw prefect. She stopped just barely before colliding with her. "It's the Slytherin monster," Hermione gasped out of breath. "I have to tell the teachers. I figured it out." "I'll come with you," Penelope said with a set jaw. "Okay, but we need to look through this mirror," Hermione said. "Like this. Just trust me." Penelope followed Hermione's lead and gazed into the mirror. Hermione tilted it so they could see where they had to go. Suddenly, Hermione and Penelope both saw a flash of red dart across the mirror. Everything went grey. Everything ceased.